Hello, reader. Everything in this story has been translated for your convenience. All time is set around Earth Standard Time, 365.25 Earth rotations around Sol per year, and idioms have been adjusted so that they make sense to English speakers. The only exception is certain nouns. Those are written in their proper name with translations in brackets where applicable. Enjoy. Subject, shiphead, Eulina. Species, Uricari description, reptilian humanoid, no tail. 5 3 inches, 1.6 m AVG height, 135 pounds, 61 kilograms AVG weight, 105-year life expectancy. Ship, RSV Loalana, fights with honor location unknown. Our ship had taken a beating and nobody can tell me where we are. Our nav officer is down and probably isn't going to survive his wounds. My second was already dead, head smashed in by a console detaching when we were hit by the first missile salvo. My own head was reeling from the successive slip-space jumps we had just made. The first jump was to arrive at our destination, and the second was to escape the ambush that had awaited us. The second one was the problem. It had been done out of desperation. We had jumped blind and without shields. We have multiple hull breaches, our faster-than-light drive is offline, and our engines are not responding, sir. The panic in the voice of Luna, my head of engineering, was palpable. Evacuate and seal the breached sectors, initiate distress protocol, and try to find out where we are, I managed to say through gritted teeth. This was supposed to be a simple scouting mission. Some warp irregularities that we were supposed to scan and report back on. Our shields didn't even have a chance to spool up before we had been fired on by the Omni-Union bastards. We had been hit hard, and the additional strain of an unshielded warp likely caused even more damage. Sir, the ship that hit us was a destroyer class, my intel officer Crean informed me. There's no way they were there by chance. That's not good, I replied. We need to inform the Republic as soon as we can. Speaking of which, where are we on a location? Crean grimaced. Judging from our flight path, we're far beyond our borders. That's also not good. Well, we're also outside of the OU's borders, so it could be worse. Probably. I'll have more info when our sensors come back online. Jumping unshielded desynchronized them. Crean frowned as she glanced at the nav panel across the bridge. My nav officer, Kron, had been taken to the medbay. Crean and Kron were hatchmates, siblings that burst into the world simultaneously. It's said that they have an unshakable bond, and as far as I've seen, that holds up. The odds of both of them being assigned to the same ship were slim to none, but they somehow made it happen. Their playful banter made the long treks into deep space less exhausting. I hope Kron makes it. His quick thinking had saved us. He had already calculated a blind jump by the time I gave the order. Luna interrupted my chain of thought. Shiphead, I have a more comprehensive damage report. Let's hear it. We're in a bad way. We have hull breaches in engineering, life support, and the living quarters. These areas have been sealed off until we can enact repairs, but that will require a spacewalk. Luna grimaced. We've lost a lot of gas, and the pressurized reserves might not be enough to fully repressurize those sectors. Understood. As long as we don't have leaks, you can take your time formulating a plan. Not too long, though, or we'll run out of rations. I smiled at my little joke. Luna didn't. We also have no propulsion or shields. Sublights and our FTLD are non-responsive and vacuum exposed. I wouldn't be surprised if we were leaking radiation, but I can't confirm that without our sensors. Our shields are non-functional, and our frame is damaged. We're going to need at least dry dock for full repairs, but I think it's likely that the ship is totaled. This was far from the Loalana's maiden voyage. I had been the shiphead for 12 years, but the ship had been in service for at least 30. She had started life as a corvette, but is now classified as a frigate. Relatively small for a warship, but faster than most, and could pack a punch. As long as we got a swing in, at least. The Loalana could fit a crew of up to 50, but operated best with a smaller crew. We had departed with a crew of 38, including myself. What's our casualties look like? I said, no longer smiling. Luna looked down at his data pad solemnly. 6 dead, 10 critically injured, 4 unaccounted for, 20 casualties. My heart sank. More than half my crew out of action, and more than a quarter of them dead or MIA. I felt myself spiraling and shook myself out of it. Half is better than all. Keep me updated on the status of the injured and missing. I'll notify the next of kin when we're rescued. Speaking of which, how's the distress signal doing? It's beeping away, shiphead, Crean said, and our sensors just came back online. We are definitely leaking radiation Liuna. Anyways, I can pinpoint where we are now. Hopefully there's an exploration team within sensor range. The odds of that were low. Ever since the war with the Omni-Union had began, the Republic had been more focused on manning warships than exploring the cosmos. For good reason, though. The war hadn't been going in our favor. It seemed like for every OU ship we took out, another 3 took their place. We'd managed to keep them out of the core systems, but we were firmly on the defensive. Ah, I spoke too soon, Kryn sighed. We're well out of range of anything, Republic. No known life this far out. Looks like we're smack in the middle of a solar system, though. Maybe we can get some supplies for repairs. Let's see. A yellow dwarf sun, 8 planets. Oh, 4 of them are gas giants. No worries about repressurization. I smiled sadly. That's good. Hopefully we can get what we need to limp back to Repu. Fuck, Kreen interrupted me. Shiphead, this solar system is inhabited. What? What? Kreen looked up at me. I'm showing signs of advanced colonization on 2 planets and several moons. Actually, one of the planets look like a capital world. The entire surface is covered in artificial structures. Also, there are... A proximity alarm pinged. The first 2 notes were the same for every ship that approached. The second 2 determined if it was friend, foe, or unknown. In my 12 years of being shiphead, I had never heard these last 2 notes. Unknown. Luna rushed back to his console. Unknown vessel on approach, Kreen said, baffled. It's absolutely massive, easily twice the size of any battleship I've ever seen. It has shields powered up but doesn't appear to have its weapons armed. Not that we'd necessarily be able to tell, Luna said fearfully. I sat up straight and asked, Are comms online? Yes, sir. Hail them. They're hailing us, sir, Luna said. Do you want me to put them through? I nodded, and Luna set to work opening a channel. The sounds that came through our speakers were nonsensical and guttural. I looked at Luna in confusion. The channel is working. We'll need a minute for the translator to take effect, he explained. The next noise I heard nearly sent me into an early grave from shock. No need for that. We've scanned your logs and extrapolated your language. I am Captain Reynolds of the USSS Thanatos. You seem to be in a spot of bother. May we assist? Asked the voice from the speaker. It took me a second to remember how to speak. I am shiphead Eulina of the RSV Loalana. We come in peace and are in no position to turn down an offer of aid. It shall be done. Prepare to be boarded and welcome to Sol. Subject, shiphead Eulina species, Urakari. Description, reptilian humanoid, no tail. 5, 3 inches, 1.6 m AVG height, 135 pounds, 61 kilograms AVG weight, 105-year life expectancy. Ship, RSV Loalana fights with honor. Location, Sol. The bridge was silent as we all watched the holographic display of the massive ship that had come to our rescue. The armor plating of the ship gave it the shape of driftwood, or something an artist would try to create with driftwood before they gave up part of the way through. Flat semi-round and very, very thick plates covered almost the entirety of the vessel with the exception of a few spots. It took me some time to realize that those spots were likely weapon ports, or maybe even fighter bays. There were 4 obvious weapons, 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom, pointing in separate directions. Judging from the shape, they had to be some sort of magnetically accelerated cannon. They were bigger than the Loalana. Sir, part of the unknown vessel is opening up and something is detaching from the interior, Kreen informed me in a voice just above a whisper. It looks like it's another ship. A ship that was a little larger than our own separated from the unknown vessel and positioned itself alongside the Loalana. An even smaller ship then left that one and began a course for us. We're being hailed by the small vessel, Luna croaked, struggling to find his voice. I cleared my throat and said, Put them through. The speaker crackled to life, and the voice on the other end said, RSV Loalana, this is Lieutenant Sergei Babanin of the USS Valor. Please respond. We're here, Lieutenant Sergei Babanin of the USS Valor. I am shiphead Eulina, and this is the RSV Loalana. You have permission to come aboard, I said, trying to mask the tension in my voice. This was the worst-case scenario for a first contact from a species outside of the Republic. Indebting ourselves at first contact is definitely going to have some political backlash, especially with some of the more xenophobic member species. You would think that going to war would be, but being indebted to someone you don't know is usually a lose-lose scenario. Either we're out something by repaying the debt, or we don't repay the debt and go to war anyway. Well, Lieutenant Babinin began hesitantly, we're not quite ready for boarding yet. We're showing several hull breaches and your structural integrity is, well, our frame is damaged, we know. It's not just damaged, ship head. It's cracked. Your frame is being held together by your hull, and your hull has holes in it. If we're not extremely precise with our docking maneuver, you're going to fall to bits. I gave Luna a bewildered look. He returned my stare with one of his own before looking back at his instrument panel. By the suns, he's right. Apologies, shiphead, the damage is much more severe than we originally assessed, he said. What can we do? I asked, trying not to sound panicked. I don't want to lose any more of my crew. I don't know, Luna said, nearly losing his composure. Don't worry too much, shiphead. We're going to be able to extract you, Lieutenant Babinin interjected. We're just going to need precision guidance. We're downloading the software required right now. Do you have compatible docking equipment, clamps and such? I asked. Well, we're currently waiting for the download to finish to solidify our plan of action, but I think our best bet is to use an umbilical. Looking at your ship's layout and the holes in it, we can probably attach to the hole in your... I think that's your living quarters? It's the room near your bridge. I did some mental mapping. Yes, that's right. That area's sealed off due to depressurization, though. That won't be a problem, Lieutenant Babinin said cheerily. We've brought enough gas to repressurize your entire ship. Once we're attached and the room is repressurized, you'll be able to unseal it and exit through the umbilical. The plan was solid, but one thing bothered me. If you're going to be using an umbilical, then why do you need precision guidance software? We're not familiar with your ship's construction methods or composition, he began. For all we know, just getting close to your ship can cause it to break apart due to the forces generated by our proximity. We'll need to be in a position far enough away that we won't be affecting you, aim and guide the umbilical to the proper position, and fire it gently enough that it won't send a shockwave that will shatter your ship. Understood, I said, satisfied by the explanation. All right, do you have pressure suits available? He asked. Liuna shook his head and said, We don't have pressure suits, but we do have respirators. They won't last long if we're exposed to vacuum, though. Well, that's better than nothing. I suggest you prep them. We'll be in touch when we're ready to begin. Acknowledged. Shiphead Eulina, out. The comms light winked out as the connection was severed. The crew sat in silence for a time, unsure of what to say. Something was bothering me about that interaction, but I couldn't quite place it. It was Crean who made it click into place. Their sensors must be much more advanced than ours, she said in a hushed tone. What do you mean? Asked Liuna. I spoke up. They were able to tell that our frame was fractured before we were. They were also able to determine our ship's layout to a degree that allowed them to formulate a rescue plan without consulting us. Not only that, but they were able to scan our databases well enough to be able to extrapolate and translate our language. More silence. We hadn't just indebted ourselves in first contact with an unknown alien species. We'd indebted ourselves with a more advanced unknown alien species. I spent the next few minutes wondering what I should wear to my hearing. I took solace in the fact that what's left of my crew might live. We're being hailed, sir, Luna informed me. Open a channel. Lieutenant Babinin sounded more cheerful as he said, We're ready to rescue you. Turns out my plan held up to scrutiny, so we'll be proceeding with it. The only change is that we'll be sending some of our people aboard to assist with the evacuation, and I'll be joining the away team. Once everyone is safely off the ship, the USS Thanatos will scoop it up so we can begin repairs. Even though it was likely a very accurate description of what will happen, something deeply bothered me about the idea of a ship that can crew 50 people being scooped up. Understood, I replied. You have my permission to board. We'll begin evacuation preparation immediately. I'll see you on the bridge, Eulina out. The comms light once again flashed off and the crew gathered around the holographic display in anticipation. We watched as the alien ship expertly maneuvered into a position far enough away that its magnetic fields and gravity wouldn't affect us enough to break us into pieces. We held our breath as the umbilical was fired and slowly traveled the distance between us. There was a time delay of half a second, so we actually heard the ever-so-soft thud of the umbilical making contact before we saw it. "The umbilical has hit its mark and we're holding steady," Crean said joyfully. The tension in the air evaporated as the crew allowed themselves a little celebration. For my part, I exhaled the breath I had been holding in. We're almost safe. "Don't celebrate too heartily. We'll be having guests soon, and I want everyone on their best behavior. No staring," I said with a smile. "Short band signal coming in, sir," Crean said, holding her hand to her ear. "It's the lieutenant. He and his team are proceeding through the umbilical. Okay, everyone, respirators on. I want the injured evacuated first, then the non-essentials. Crean, Luna, you'll be evacuating with me," I said with as much authority as I could muster. "Yes, sir," the remaining crew said unanimously. "Sir, they're aboard. The lieutenant is headed this way," Crean said. I heard the thudding footsteps before I saw what they belonged to. The first one through the door was huge. I was fooled at first because it had to slump through the door, but then it rose to its full height. At least 6 foot 5 inches, 195 centimeters, and very wide. It was obviously wearing a pressure suit, but the suit looked more like body armor. The helmet was completely opaque, with what looked like lights and cameras installed. There were thick plates strategically placed on what looked like a rubbery weaved bodysuit. The bodysuit was black, but everything else was navy blue. We were all staring in a shocked silence when the other two monstrosities crouched through the door. They were both 7 to 216 centimeters tall and wearing a similar pressure suit, but in olive drab. Even under such seemingly cumbersome attire, it was obvious that their musculature would put our most avid bodybuilders to shame. I fought my fight-or-flight instincts as I briefly wondered if they were even organic at all. "Air's safe, Lieutenant," one of the green monsters said. The one in blue took off his helmet to reveal soft, beige skin with golden, high-cut hair. His piercing blue eyes scanned the room like a predator before he affixed his gaze to me. His lips curled in what could be mistaken for a snarl, showing 4 pointed teeth and several flat ones. This actually set me at ease because I recognized the expression as a smile. Several primate species have similar expressions. Even the Urukari have our own variation. "You must be Shiphead Ulina," it said. "Yes, and you must be Lieutenant Babanin. Well, welcome aboard," I said, trying my best not to stammer. "I'm sorry if we look frightening. These are designed to do that, but they're all we had on hand." "I understand you're, quite larger than we pictured," I said as I rubbed the back of my neck nervously. One of the green monsters chuckled slightly. The other turned to look at him with what I assume was a glare. "The suits add to our size by an inch or two. It doesn't sound like it makes a difference, but it definitely does." He gestured to his left. "This is Corporal Simmons." Then he gestured to his right. "This is Lance Corporal Johnson." "Nice to meet you," Johnson said in a gruff voice. I nodded in acknowledgement, unable to speak. "Well then, let's get you rescued, shall we?" Lieutenant Babanin said with another smile. I was about to agree when the proximity alert chimed again. This time I definitely recognized the sound. I had been hearing it more and more lately, and the last time I heard it was right before we found ourselves in this situation. My heart skipped a beat. Kryn looked up from her station and shouted, "Sir, Omni-Union ships!"